morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the Willow Cove Crafts podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing and my journey to creating a handmade wardrobe and home. My name is Emily, and you can find me on both Ravelry and Instagram as Willow Cove Crafts. Today is Sunday, March 20th, 2022, and I am coming to you from just outside of Madison in Verona, Wisconsin. It has been a little less than 2 weeks since I last recorded, and it has been kind of busy. In case you didn't know, I recently had surgery and was out on medical leave, but I went back to work this week, which was really good. Physically, I felt really good and ready to go back to work. Obviously, I don't enjoy work as much as sitting at home all day. I mean, that's maybe all of us. But overall, I'm happy to be back at work. I generally really like my job, but obviously that is now taking up a lot of my time that I otherwise had free when I was on medical leave. Other things, because I've been feeling so much better physically, I've started going back to the gym a bit. I'm trying to get a little bit more serious about, health and maybe losing a little bit of weight. And so I've been trying to work out 4 days a week, which again, I really enjoy, but that does take up time that I would have otherwise been devoted to knitting and sewing. And then besides that, the weather has been getting really nice here. And so I think just naturally with the weather getting nice, I feel like our social calendar starts to fill up. People just, come out of their winter hibernation and start wanting to do things. So we've had quite a few outings with our friends. We've been watching a lot of basketball. It is March Madness here. If you are not from the United States, that is the big college basketball tournament that happens every spring. We will be watching University of Wisconsin play later today. But so anyways, there's just been, birthdays and things. And so overall, I feel like over the last 2 weeks, I have not gotten a lot of knitting and sewing done. I don't feel like I have a ton to show you today, but since it has been about 2 weeks, I wanted to check in and let you all know what I have been up to crafting wise. So not a ton to show today, but I always enjoy seeing the progress that people have made on things, even if it's quite small. So yes, I think it will be a shorter episode, but such is life. Let's start today with what I am wearing, and maybe I can scoot back a little bit so you can see a little better. Oops, I kicked my tripod. This is my Scout tee. I just have it tucked into some high-waisted jeans, doing a little French tuck, trying to stay stylish. Anyways, this is my Scout tee. This is a pattern by Grainline Studio that I sewed, I think the last summer in June or July. I don't quite remember. I used a linen that I purchased from Blackbird fabrics. It's got this really small red, white, and black striping on it. It's got a cuffed sleeve detail that I really like. Wow, I'm just like elbowing and kicking things all over the place today. But yes, I still really like this shirt. I have found a lot of my handmade or hand sewn clothes, I should say, are woven fabrics, and those typically need to be ironed after they get washed, and I'm really lazy about ironing things. So I think because like the item, I like it, it's clean, but it's wrinkly and I have to iron it, and that prevents me from wearing my stuff more often than I would like. And so, you know, as the weather is turning nicer and maybe I start wearing some more of my sewn pieces, I'm gonna have to figure out a strategy to stay on top of my ironing and to not be such a lazy bum about it. That is just a tangent that I thought I would share with you today. Yeah, a weird question, but you know, if any of you have a really great ironing strategy, or you know, do you do it right when your stuff comes out of the wash? Do you do it when you're ready to wear it? Do you pick a day to just get all of your ironing done? Or any products you can think of that help prevent lots and lots of wrinkles? I would be really curious to hear, because I want to wear the things I make more, but I'm really lazy about it, I have discovered. So any tips or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. As far as works in progress goes this week, I have only knit on one thing since I recorded last, and I've only sewn on one thing. So I have 2 works in progress to show you today, both of which I showed on my last episode. So if you watch that, you'll maybe remember these, but I have made some progress on them. So let's start with knitting. I have been working on my Tove sweater by Gregoria Fibers, and let me show you what I have done in the last several weeks. It looks really weird. So the Tove sweater is knit bottom up, and I always think bottom up sweaters look just really weird, because they have like no shoulder structure at the beginning. They just look like weird sacks. Anyways, here is my sweater. So, let me find, here we are. So last episode, I was here where I have my rainbow donut stitch marker. This is a stitch marker by Sucre Miniatures, which, if you have not checked out Sucre Miniatures page or website, you should go look them up. They do just the most amazing, a lot of their charms are food, but they are clay charms, stitch markers that look like little foods, and they're so realistic. I think it's amazing. But anyways, that's what this little donut is from. So yep, last episode I was maybe like an inch and a half into the body. Again, it's bottom up, so I started down here and have been knitting up. And since then, and this is so hard to show, I have gotten to the point where you split for the arms, and I have since been knitting on the back. So I am maybe 5 or 6 inches from, you know, the armpit, and now I'm knitting flat for the back of the sweater. This is so tangled. So yes, Tove sweater. It's actually kind of easier to show upside down. There you go. You can see that the back has been getting some work and is a bit longer than the front at the moment. Let me talk about the yarn I am using, and I don't actually have the label. Maybe I can find. Here we go. So I am using Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair. This is a 70% mohair, 30% silk yarn, and I am using the Flamingo colorway. And the way this pattern works is you hold this yarn triple. And I'm getting a little nervous that I'm going to run out of yarn. nervous isn't the right word. I can buy more of this. I'm always a little nervous when I have to buy more yarn that the dye lots will be super different. But Knitting for Olive is a bit of a larger company, and so I think they're probably pretty consistent in their dye lots. But yes, I bought the amount of yarn specified in the pattern, but I think I'm definitely gonna need more. I just don't see how I'm going to be able to finish the sweater with the amount of yarn I have left. I'm just putting that back on the shelf. Yeah, that could be due, so I guess we can go into modifications. This sweater has been a little tricky for me because, so the Tove sweater is a drop shoulder construction, and I've looked at basically every picture I can find of this sweater, and the armhole ends up sitting really low, right? Like, you know, your armpit's up here, and the armhole of the sweater, because of that drop shoulder design, sits, you know, closer towards, you know, the middle of your torso rather than right up into your armpit. And I have never knit a sweater like that before. I don't own any sweaters like that. And so finding the correct length of the body was tricky. So, you know, I don't want to give away the numbers. It is a paid for pattern. But you can probably see, like, here's the bottom of the sweater, and here is, you know, where I split for the arms. Like, this is not super long. And I actually elongated this by an inch, you know, an inch more than what the pattern called for, because I'm tall and I tend to always make the bodies of my sweater a bit longer than what is called for in patterns. But I didn't want to make this too long because I know that it's not supposed to be super long, and that, you know, armhole up is actually the majority of this sweater. So it was kind of a bit of a guessing game for me. Also, because it's bottom up, it's really hard to try on and kind of, you know, you can't actually see how it's fitting you because there's no shoulders for it to like hang on your body. So I've definitely been trying it on, but I'm just kind of guessing. It's been a little tricky. And I think it would be helpful if I actually owned some drop shoulder sweaters just to, you know, compare and contrast. But I've just been kind of flying by the seat of my pants. So again, I decided to elongate the body by an inch. It still seems really short to me. However, I am trusting that it'll end up being fine. And the pattern does call out how long it is from like neckband to the bottom, but there's no schematic to tell you, you know, this is how much, you know, the body is compared to, you know, this is how long the top portion of the sweater is. I think that would have been maybe something helpful to include, especially for a bottom up sweater, because you can't properly try it on. So yeah, I hope it fits. It's also seeming very big. It is an oversized sweater. But yeah, when I try it on, it's just like, it's a bit of a sack. Like it just kind of hangs there. Anyways, I hope that all fixes itself with time. But yes, Tove sweater, like I said, it's a drop shoulder sweater. It's an all over fisherman rib. So, you know, you've got twisted rib at your hems, cuffs, and neckline, and then this overall full fisherman's rib for the body. And I think I said during my last episode that I felt like this sweater was going quickly. I 100% take that back. This is like the slowest going sweater I've ever knit. I think that has to do with, so in case you're not familiar, fisherman's rib It's very similar in like feel and looks to brioche. I don't actually think if you gave me a swatch of fisherman's rib and a swatch of brioche that I would be able to tell them apart. They are very, very similar fabrics. I'm sure there are some like very minor differences between the two. You definitely knit them differently. It's a very different stitch to perform, but the resulting fabric is super similar. But anyways, much like brioche is kind of slow going, because in brioche you knit every other stitch and then you have to go back to the beginning of that row and re-knit the stitches that you didn't do the first time, so you end up knitting each row twice. Fisherman's rib, you knit every stitch every time, but you knit in the stitch below, which, you know, kind of like tugs the fabric down and is what makes it super squishy, but it just does not grow as fast lengthwise as, you know, standard knitting does. So anyways, I've been just like knitting away on this. Again, this is literally the only thing I knit on over the last couple weeks, and I have decent progress, but not as much as I would have liked. I do not have the amount of progress I feel is proportionate to the amount of time I spent on it. So it's a slow knit. I still really enjoy it. I love fisherman's rib. I think it feels really nice, and in this like fuzzy yarn, it's really, really luxurious. And so I think the enjoyment I am getting out of the fabric that I'm producing is like what's really powering me through, but it's slow. I don't think this will be done by next episode. But yes, Tove sweater, Gregoria fibers. I think it's gonna be a staple in my wardrobe. I really, really like it, but I'm ready to make some good progress on that one. So it is done. I have a lot of other sweaters I want to knit right now. I'm like really lusting after some other sweaters, but I'm trying to be good and work on my one project, finish it up. But this one is slow. I'm trying to think of what else I can say. Oh, I did want to call out, I talked a couple episodes ago about the knitting barber cords, the TKB cords, which they are everywhere on social media these days, but it's these cords that you like slip on your needle, and it makes it really easy to try on your sweater. They are also really great for holding stitches, I have found. So I literally just like popped one of these cords on the end of my needle and pulled it through my live stitches, and then I've just knotted it. The knot kinks the cord slightly, but I don't think it like impacts the usability of them, because really like the usable part of the cord is where you stick your needle in. And so like it doesn't really matter if the rest of the cord is kinked. But anyways, that is how I put my front stitches on hold, is just with these cords. And then when I am ready to knit the front of the sweater, I'll just untie this, pop my needle in here and pull my needle through. And it makes it really quick. It's definitely a lot quicker than like putting your stitches on a spare needle or putting it on a piece of scrap yarn. So just something to call out that I think is a really neat tool. Yes. I am a little sad. I feel like by the time I finish the sweater, it's gonna be too warm to wear it. It's gonna be 60 degrees here today, which is a little high. The rest of the week is supposed to be in the 40s and 50s, but like 50 degrees is still maybe like a little too warm to wear a sweater, a mohair sweater. Specifically, mohair is very warm. So I might be having to wait to wear this until the fall, but that's okay. I Yeah, I really love how it feels. Like, I wish you could reach through the screen and touch this. It's so soft and squishy. And yes, I think that is all I have to say about this sweater. Like I mentioned, that is it for knitting this week. I have also done a little bit of sewing, and I was hoping this would be done by today's episode so that I could wear it, but alas. But I'm hoping to have this finished up by next time I record. But I talked about it in my last episode that I was getting ready to start sewing the Hadley top by Grainline Studio, who is also the designer of the shirt I am wearing. And I think at that point I had not even done a muslin. I hadn't cut any of my fabric. I think it was still very much in the planning stages. But since then I made a successful muslin and cut out all my fabric and have started sewing my shirt. So here's what I have so far. As you can tell, it's missing one of its sleeves, and I still need to finish off the neckline, and I still need to finish off the bottom hem. But I've got one sleeve all done. The front has this center seaming detail, the front and the back. You can see kind of the inside here, and then that is also mirrored on the front. I am using a fabric. It's a 100% cotton, like Swiss dot fabric that I purchased from JoAnn Fabrics, which is a big box fabric store around here. And yes, I have made some modifications, which I talked about in my last episode. So I am making view B of the Hadley top, which is actually meant to just be a tank top. So view B has that center seam, and then it has a V-neck, which you can see here. And then it's just a sleeveless tank top. I decided that I wanted to add some short sleeves to it. So the other view of the shirt has long sleeves. So I just, cut out the sleeve, but, obviously didn't make it as long as the pattern piece. I shortened it to a short sleeve. And that worked out really nicely in my muslin, so I am repeating that here. Yeah, pretty simple modification. I kept the bust darts the same as they are in the pattern. I have a pretty large bust, and so I often have to do bust adjustments. However, there was a lot of ease built into this shirt. So when I made my muslin, I found that it fit pretty well without a bust adjustment, which I'm a little lazy again, so I don't want to have to do a bust adjustment if I don't have to. Bust adjustments are not tricky. They sound really tricky, but there's a lot of really great video tutorials on how to do them. It's just a bit of like cutting and taping in strategic places. It's really easy if you find a good tutorial. But still, why do something when you don't have to do something? So yes, hopefully I will finish that up soon. Something I thought was worth maybe talking about was that I do not have a serger or an overlocker. I think that term is kind of regional. I think here in America, we tend to call it a serger, and then in a lot of other countries, you call it an overlocker. It's the same machine. I just have a standard sewing machine, and so something I am always trying to experiment with or figure out is how to finish my seams really nicely without a serger. So in case you aren't familiar, a serger is what it kind of locks in the edge of your fabric, and so your fabric doesn't fray. you can't really see it from the outside, but like if you look closely at your store-bought clothes, you'll see like the inside fabric seams. The fabric has this is like enclosed in thread. A serger is the machine that does that. I don't have one of those. However, I still want my pieces to look professional. I don't want my seams to fray because I feel like over time that fraying will kind of get close to the seam and maybe, you know, impact the integrity of that seam. So I'm always trying to figure out ways to get around not having a serger because I am still a fairly new garment sewer and I am just not ready to invest in a serger. They are very expensive. So one of the big things I do, I'm just gonna put that hanger down, is I do a lot of French seams. So French seam is basically a double seam where you enclose the raw edge of your fabric into this nice little tube. I do it on the sleeves as well. And so you end up with a really nice, clean seam that protects the raw edge of your fabric. Something that I had to get a little creative on with this shirt is it's got this, again, center seam detail, and I couldn't do a French seam with that. So what I did was I used an alternate stitch on my machine. It's not a zigzag stitch, but it's like almost like a diamond stitch. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that at all. But I kind of ran that down the edge of this fabric piece just so, you know, and this is a raw edge. I fully expect this to fray. It's already starting to, but hopefully if it frays too much, that line of diamond stitches will kind of stop it from fraying in all the way to this center seam, which is what's actually holding the shirt together. So things like that, like it's not perfect, but I think it will, you know, hold up pretty nicely. Yes, our clothes wear out eventually. So I want to make sure that, you know, I've got something in place that'll keep it together as long as possible, right? Wear and tear to our clothing will happen, even our handmade things, but it's nice to give them the best chance they have at longevity. So anyways, Hadley top, Grainline Studio, an unknown cotton fabric from JoAnn's, and yes, hoping to finish that this week or next week. And then I can pick a new sewing project to work on. I'm actually probably gonna pick up a quilt as my next sewing project, but I will talk about that when we get there. And that is it for crafty content this episode. So if that is all you came for, I will see you next time. The last thing I wanted to talk about this week is a bit of an experiment. I want to see how this goes. So, you know, at a high level, essentially what I am looking to do is destash I wouldn't say a significant portion of my stash, but a decent amount. I have mentioned this a couple times, but I have a huge yarn stash. I like see other people on social media or in my real life who talk about how big their yarn stash is, and I'm always like, mine is bigger. I have a lot of yarn. I've been knitting for a long time, and I just have accumulated quite the collection, and it stresses me out. Like, I will be very frank with you, I feel a lot of anxiety about the size of my yarn stash, and I think that is twofold. The first reason is that I think I have more yarn than I could possibly knit in my lifetime. And I have yarn of certain types that no longer interest me as much as they used to. So for example, and this is like a real peek behind the curtain, I hope no one out there judges me too much, but I would estimate that I have maybe around 400 single skeins of sock yarn. Just sock yarn, probably around 400. And socks are not my favorite thing to knit anymore. I still knit them. I still enjoy a pair of hand knit socks, but I am much more drawn to knitting sweaters these days. So I, historically the last couple years, I like maybe knit 5 pairs of socks maximum, somewhere between 3 and 5 pairs of socks I will knit every year. And so, that math just doesn't add up. Like there's no way at 3 to 5 pairs of socks every year that I'm ever gonna knit through 400 skeins of sock yarn. It just won't happen. And so that's reason one. And I get a lot of anxiety about that. I've got this stuff, these beautiful skeins of yarn just sitting in boxes, and I'm probably never going to get to them if I'm being honest with myself. And then the other point is that, like I said, I've been knitting a long time. My tastes have changed over the years, and some of my yarn I'm just not as drawn to anymore. It's beautiful yarn. I don't want anyone to think that I think it's ugly. It's just not my taste. So, when I first discovered Ravelry and knitting podcasts, I feel like I went into a frenzy and bought so much stuff. If I liked something, even kind of, I would buy it. And now I'm trying to be a bit more choosy and buy things that I love. And, over the last few years, my style has definitely shifted towards more neutrals, muted colors. Whereas in my early 20s, when I bought a lot of this yarn, I loved the brights and the neons. And so it just doesn't align with my color preferences anymore. I also have a lot of speckled yarns. Speckles and highly variegated yarns are just not my style anymore. I definitely prefer solids and light tonals. So yeah, making a highly speckled shawl is just not something I'm probably going to ever do or gravitate towards. But I know plenty of people who love that style, and love those colors, and why not try and find that yarn a good home with someone who absolutely loves it, instead of with me, who is a little so-so about it. So anyways, that is, kind of the thought process that has led me to decide that I would like to try and destash and sell some of the yarn that I know in my heart of hearts I just am not ever going to get to. How I am choosing to do this, I know that there's a Ravelry marketplace. Ravelry is a bit inaccessible these days to a lot of people. And I have seen quite a few people do destashes on Instagram. And so that is what I am going to try. I'm gonna do like a very small scale destash and then just see how it goes and, make adjustments as needed. I don't like to lock myself into anything. So if this goes super poorly, I'll just change my strategy. That's completely fine. But how it's going to work is I have created a new Instagram account called Willow Cove Destash. So if you're interested in this, please go follow that account so that you can be notified when things go up. And then what I'm planning on doing is every episode, I will let you know if I'm planning on destashing something, and I'll walk you through what it is. And then, upload those entries onto the Instagram. So how it will work on the Instagram is I will post a picture of the yarn that is for sale, and you just have to comment. If you want to buy it, comment on that yarn, and the first person to comment, I will reach out to via direct message. Get your, I think payment will probably be through either PayPal or Venmo. I have accounts with both, so whatever your preference is. So I will get your payment information so that I can send you a payment request and get your address and send you your yarn. I am gonna put some time limits. So from when I message you, you'll have 24 hours to get back to me. And then from there, you'll have 24 hours to send the payment. And yes, if there's a little bit of a delay with the interaction and there is someone else who has commented on that post saying that they are interested, I will then move on to the next person. And yes, once something is sold, I will take it down off of that Instagram page. And yes, I hope that makes sense. Basically, if you're interested in something, comment, and then I will reach out to you. Yes. So, what's going up this weekend? I am planning on kind of finalizing like the details and descriptions on that page by the time this episode goes up. So hopefully by the time you're seeing this, everything is like set and ready to go. And then I'm also going to be posting these particular yarns this afternoon. So again, by the time you see this, hopefully those yarns have gone up. And if they are no longer there, that means that they have sold. So yes. And I'm just going to be selling 3 things this time just to see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, I will change my strategy. But we will see. So I had a look through, the theme this week is self-striping sock yarns. So I picked out 3 self-striping sock yarn balls that I just, again, don't think I'm ever really going to get to. So the first one is this beauty. This is Nomadic yarns in the Bellatrix Lestrange colorway. This is on their Trusty sock base, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 462 yards. And I will try and take the most accurately colored pictures I can. Obviously, different people's screens do different things. But this one, you've got a black stripe, you've got this really deep purple, and then there's a gray stripe with some chartreuse, I cannot say that word, flecks. So again, this is a self-striping yarn. All of these are self-striping yarns. The next one I'm going to be putting up is also a Nomadic yarns. This is in the Amortentia colorway. I believe that's a reference to the love potion in Harry Potter. Bellatrix Lestrange is also a Harry Potter reference, in case you're wondering. So yeah, this is another one of her Harry Potter colorways named after the love potion, and I can't say it, Amortentia? Whatever, it doesn't matter. This is also in the Trusty sock base, so that's that 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And it's got a lot of pretty bright colors. There's a red, purple, yellow, orange, super gorge. And the last one I will be putting up today is a ball of ScrumptiousPurl self-striping sock yarn. This is in the Sintra colorway. I believe I got this as part of a club. She had done like a travel club. So like for 6 months, she made yarns. Ooh, again, kicking things. For about 6 months, she made yarns that represented different places that she had traveled to. So this is one of them. It's got yellow, 2 shades of gray, and some white, or excuse me, red. This is in her Stripe Me Up base, which is an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards. And there is that one. So again, here are the 3 together. And I will be posting pictures of those on that Willow Cove Destash Instagram account. I will put a description of the yarn below the picture along with the price. I have to go remind myself how much I paid for these or like what the current market value is. They will be at a discount. I'm not going to charge full price, so I will knock off a few dollars, and then shipping will also be free. I will pay for the cost of shipping. So go check out that account if you are interested. The reason I'm going through that here is I would prefer to give my podcast viewers like kind of first dibs at the things I am selling, which is part of the reason I want to go through Instagram instead of Ravelry. Because yeah, I appreciate all of your support, and you know, maybe you can get your hands on some yarn that is not available anymore. Some of this might be available still, but some of it might not. Some of it's like deep stash. Still perfectly good yarn, but you know, it's people that don't dye anymore, or maybe they don't do those colorways anymore. So yes, that is what is going into the Destash. So I hope that all makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, let's see how this goes. And that is everything from me today. I will plan on recording again in about 2 weeks. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and have a great rest of your day, rest of your week until I chat with you again. Bye, everyone.